Welcome back, my crazy people. The birds are chirping, the day is nice. It honestly is super nice out here. The sun is like just coming over the trees and it's beautiful. It looks beautiful. We got some shade, we have like a very slight breeze, and it's like, oh man, it is beautiful weather right now. Absolutely beautiful. I wish I was outside just playing right now. This is just like walking around, because this is amazing weather right now. Amazing. Today we're going to be looking at the album Thank You for Today by Death Cab for Cutie. Death Cab for Cutie is an indie alternative band, kind of an indie alternative emo band. Most of their music is very sad, is very slow. They do have a few really upbeat songs, but most of it is kind of slow, kind of down-tempo songs. They're most well known for their album Transatlanticism, which was very critically acclaimed, and to this day is their most critically acclaimed album. It's the one which kind of cemented them as kind of a very good band. The rest of their discography didn't get super good critical acclaim, but that album kind of put them on the map for critics. It was kind of a critical success, you could say. And these guys do have about 2 big hit songs. The songs I Will Possess Your Heart and Soul Meets Body. I think it's Soul Meets Body. No, not Soul Meets Body. I Will Follow You Into the Dark. Soul Meets Body is one of their popular songs, but I don't know if it gets played on the radio. I Will Possess Your Heart and I Will Follow You Into the Dark are 2 of their most popular songs that I have heard on alternative radio a few times. This album, Thank You for Today, is their most recent album. It is their 3rd album. I'm pretty sure their 3rd album with Atlantic Recordings. Their first one was, of course, Codes and Keys, and the second was Kintsugi. And then we got this album, Thank You for Today. It's also their 3rd album released in the 2010s. These guys have released several albums, actually. These guys have been around since the 2000s, and they're still kicking, releasing an album in 2018. Definitely a band that's still making music. This album had one pretty small hit. Kintsugi also had a small hit of its own. It was the song Black Sun. Actually, and Ghosts of Beverly Drive. Both of those were sort of hits, but they didn't really get played on the radio. And the same can be said of the song Gold Rush from this album. It was sort of a hit, and it sort of got played on the radio just a little bit, but not really. So that's what happened. Anyway, this album is 10 songs long, about 38 minutes, and I do own it on CD because I bought it on CD. But that's cool. That's probably the thumbnail. Interestingly, Thank You for Today, for some reason, critics are not mentioning this. When I've heard people talk about this album, I'm not hearing them talk about what to me is kind of the very obvious lyrical theme of the album, and that is the theme of change. In almost every one of these songs is about looking back on the past, and mostly in a negative sense, like wishing that things are the way that they used to be. On I Dreamt We Spoke Again, he's talking about someone who he spoke to in the past and saying, I dreamt we spoke again today in the present. In Gold Rush, he talks about how his town used to be, and then how they started digging everything up, digging up the trees and replacing them with concrete parking lots and parking decks, and how everything that he knows is from his old town is being changed around him, and how he's noticing that in the present, how everything he loved in the past is being changed. And When We Drive, he talks about a relationship that he has in the present, which he wishes and longs to go into the future, saying, I hope that it stays this way, and I hope the relationship, it's basically a plea for a long-term relationship, an ode to a long-term relationship that he wishes to have or already has. And then, You Moved Away is about somebody who he used to know, who eventually moved away, and how he goes back to her apartment and goes past the apartment building and regrets that she moved away. I think it's a she. I'm not exactly sure. And then 60 and a Punk. Also, I think all of these songs have this theme but I'm just pointing out the ones I can remember on the top of my head. 60 and a Punk, it's just called 60 and Punk, is about a rock star who used to be big and famous and who over time slowly lost popularity, slowly lost that sense of being famous, slowly became something not amazing, something that he wasn't originally. And he still tries to hold on to that fame and that popularity and that identity as a rock star. And basically Benjamin Gibbard is singing and saying, you're not that anymore. You're pretending to be something you're not, and it's hurting you as a person. This is an album released in 2018, and some of these songs do show that this was an album released in 2018. I Dreamt We Spoke Again, what I mean by that is the modern production. I Dreamt We Spoke Again has very modern production, a lot of computer-assisted sounds. That's really loud and annoying. Oh, please go away. And then we have songs like Summer Years, which do this very Summer Years and Northern Lights and Autumn Love, which all have this electronic sparkle to them to give them this kind of mystical, kind of magical kind of feel that they just kind of throw in. Gold Rush features this kind of robotic, not really robotic, but just this chanting of Gold Rush, like 40-something times throughout the song that clearly feels like not something you would have in an acoustic or old song. And then, yeah, you're gonna have a lot of computer, and then Near Far also has that electronic sparkle that isn't like super heavily electronic, but it's definitely there. It's definitely noticeable, and it's yeah, they're not trying to hide it. The only real exception to this, I would say, is the song 60 and Punk, which literally just features piano, just singing and piano, kind of like it's the last song in this album, kind of like the last song of Kintsugi, how it's just kind of a very stripped back song. It's a very stripped back kind of acoustic song on this album. Enough chit chat. Let's talk about what this album is and if it's any good or anything like that. Let's talk about that. First, let's talk about what's good about this album. Basically everything. Basically, there's very little on this album that I would say is bad. We'll get to what I think is bad in a second. But what's good on this album is literally like everything. The music throughout this album is high quality, it's enjoyable, it's pleasant, it works very well. The music on this album is just works. Especially on songs like I Dreamt We Spoke Again. That one just sounds really good. It sounds a bit unusual for Death Cab for Cutie. It doesn't sound like something they've ever done before, but it works and it sounds good. It may be a little bit sound like it's copying maybe something some other band has done, but it does sound good. Summer Years originally doesn't sound that great, but by the end it's a really enjoyable song with some really great music. Gold Rush, which you may think I first didn't like at first because of the repetitivity. It's actually a really enjoyable song with some really good lyrics. The lyrics on this album, the music is very good throughout the entire album. And then the music is, very good throughout the entire album, I would say. And then the lyrics are good. The lyrics are pretty good it's Benjamin Gibbard. Benjamin Gibbard is a great songwriter. He is a consistently good to great songwriter, I would say, most of the time. And he just brings a lot of wisdom and sense and heart to these lyrics and says things that are not very commonly said, says some interesting things. And just Benjamin Gibbard, man, he does a good job. He does a good job. Now, the one thing with this album, it was hard to get my finger on on what's wrong with this album, because I felt like there was something off about it. And then I finally figured it out. And it's this always present, this ever-present sense of safeness. The music, the songs all have a very traditional song structure with verse, chorus, with, a lot of repetitive choruses, verse, chorus, all that kind of stuff. And it just feels safe. A lot of the music it sounds good. Most of the music on this album sounds really good, but it doesn't sound super creative or super out there or super original or super like they're trying anything bold. And that hurts the album because it has this feel of safeness through all the songs, or almost all the songs. We'll get to that in a second. But the safeness of the record, I would say, is is a harmful aspect of it. The safeness can extend to the lyrics on a few of these songs, but it mostly can be said of the music on this album, and applies to almost all the songs on the album. They all sound like they're made purposefully to have a certain sound, and they don't go too far outside of that sound. And yeah, I would say the two big songs that break the mold, that breaks this mold of safeness, and that breaks the safe alt-rock mold, are the songs When We Drive and 60 and a Punk. When We Drive just sounds awesome. Amazing music on that song, really effective, and the lyrics are great. The lyrics are about a long-term relationship, and that's something that most people are not singing about. Most people like to live in the moment and talk about the girlfriend or person they love in the present, and they don't talk about the relationship lasting. And this is a song about dedication, about wanting a relationship to last. And for that, I really like it. The music sounds amazing. And then the song 60 and a Punk. 60 and a Punk is the most stripped back song on this album, with just piano and Benjamin Gibbard singing in these lyrics, and the lyrics hit you so hard. The lyrics are profound, they're very effective. His singing is great on this song. Benjamin Gibbard's singing is great. The music is great. It's very simple yet very effective. These songs are really, really, really good. Besides, thank you for today's lack of creative ambition. Besides this lack of creativity, it's a lack of thinking outside the box and really trying things that are risky. It's besides thank you for today's safeness, it is a very good sounding record. Not even one song on this album is throwaway. They all have something to offer, either lyrically, musically, or both. Vocally, all of these songs are pretty good. Benjamin Gibbard is a really good singer. I mean, I think it's subjective if you think he's a good singer, because I know some people don't. I think he's a great singer. I know some people probably don't care for him as a singer, but I mean, I don't know. Musically, lyrically, this album is high quality. These songs are good. There is just this level of safeness that's impossible to shake, and that does ultimately make it, I think, possibly my least favorite Death Cab for Cutie album. Even so, it is a very good record. I'm going to give this album a 3.75 out of 5. This album is an overwhelmingly good album. Overwhelmingly good. I didn't say great. Overwhelmingly good. Because everything about it is good. The lyrics, the vocals, the singing. It's just that it's kind of safe. It's not creative enough, in my opinion. That's the problem with this album. Besides that, it's really good. What do you think of this album? What do you think of Death Cab for Cutie? I think they are one of the most consistent bands. We're going to get into that when I review. I'm going to review 3 more Death Cab for Cutie albums. Their other 3 most recent albums, and we're gonna break down how consistent I think this band is. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you. Thank you for today. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to say. Title of the album, Thank You for Today, is once more a tie-in to the theme of the album. Thank you for today. Thank you for the present. Thank you for this day. This album is about living in the present. Be present. You've heard that said before. Be present. That's what Benjamin Gibbard wants you to do on this album. Enjoy now.